Bitcoin is exploding into new highs. It's just a few percent off its all-time high at the moment. So in today's video, we're going to look at 3 major reasons why Bitcoin is exploding now and cryptocurrencies are not. One of those reasons is not my lack of sleep. But if you do feel sorry for my lack of sleep, make sure you've smashed the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit bell notification icons and all, so that I'm not lying awake at night hoping that you see this content and that the YouTube algorithm is pushing it to you. All right, moving on. Let's look at the 3 reasons today. I'm going to add in just a couple of extra reasons. You're going to get some bonuses here in terms of my own fundamental analysis and technical analysis for these reasons. So without further ado, first up, fundamental and technical. Well, you've probably seen these ones before, so they're bonus points. Scarcity on exchanges, supply and demand pressure. We get that. That's the fundamental side of it. But for the technical side, closest to all-time high than other cryptos. You know, I've looked at strong horses versus weaker horses on the channel. So we're always comparing which of our cryptocurrencies should be in our portfolios to make sure that we're on board with the stronger cryptocurrencies, just not buying all of the dips. You generally hear, buy all the altcoins, buy all the dips, buy this, that, the other. There's no reason or no way most people are looking at how to determine which ones are stronger. But in this case, we're looking at Bitcoin, and yes, at the moment, Bitcoin is very close to its all-time high, where for the majority, not all, but the majority of the major cryptocurrencies, they're still that much further from their all-time high. So this is showing strength to Bitcoin compared to the other cryptocurrencies. Now, what does that look like on a chart? Well, we've got the total market caps here, and we're going to reference the May high and sometimes the previous early September high. So briefly looking at this, the May all-time high was at about 2.57 trillion. And just yesterday, we ticked over and got to 2.6 trillion. So this is all of the market caps, including Bitcoin. Now, if we take a look at all of the market caps, excluding Bitcoin, you can still see that we're still a little way from this all-time high, about 10%. So this includes everything, including Ethereum, Cardano, Binance, Solana. If we go to the next one, and that is total 3, we're still about 12% from the all-time high. And this is all of the cryptocurrencies excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's a little bit further away now with all of these altcoins. So that is just letting us know in the charts, without even having to go through a whole lot of news or fundamental analysis, that the strength is lying with Bitcoin at the moment. We can also see that in the dominance chart as well. Dominance is up. We've crossed through our Gann 50% level. So this is a 50% on the Fib extension tool, but 50% is a Gann rule, and you can see that it had some resistance. It fell away a little bit, which is not a bad sign. Broke above, came back and tested on the upper side of the 50%, and we started to move away from that 50% for now. And that's a good sign at the moment, especially with what's going on in the space. You know, a lot of the money is moving towards Bitcoin for the time being, before we probably see some sort of altcoin season later in this cycle. Also looking at the cryptocurrency market caps, the total here, which we've just seen, around that $2.5 trillion on CoinMarketCap, we can see that a lot of the cryptos are in green. So don't get too confused with cryptos in green means everything's up. You want to make sure that you're beating the Bitcoin percentage here, 7.5%. You can see that a lot of these are not beating it, except for Polkadot at the moment in the top 20. And also Matic. But Matic has been smashed down for quite a long time, so it needs that rebound, that relief rally. And an easier way to see this is using CoinGecko. You know, we follow this quite a bit on the channel, so make sure you subscribe down below. Keep up to date with our Bitcoin analysis of the cryptocurrency market. So we look at the BTC, go to 24 hours, and make sure we are comparing the cryptos against Bitcoin. And you can see that pretty much everything is in the green. Solana's basically break even, DOT is up a tiny bit, and then Matic has had the next biggest move here. But as we've seen before, it has been smashed down for many, many, many months. So it needs that relief rally. Everything else is in the red in this 24-hour period. So this is if you're short-term trading. If you're going longer term, then obviously you want to see 7 days or a lot further out, maybe weeks to months. But at the moment, even the 7 days, everything is smashed down against Bitcoin. It's just been absolutely crushed, with the odd exception here. The graph is up a tiny bit. We've got OHM a little bit, and then you can just keep going down the list. There's not too much else. Stacks has seen a good week, but now is down again. It's been hit down. So Bitcoin is really stealing the show. And this is just a really quick way to see that Bitcoin is regaining the strength. So we're looking at the three major reasons here why Bitcoin is the strongest. And the first I've got here is the ETF lodgements and approvals. So we've seen a few of these come to light now. We have the bullish sentiment is back through institutional investors, and we have the ETFs, which are coming out on Monday. SEC will allow ProShares Bitcoin Futures ETF to start trading on Monday. The US Securities and Exchange Commission has been putting off allowing Bitcoin ETFs for years. So the company's ETF is tied to Bitcoin futures contracts rather than directly to the current price of Bitcoin. So that is essentially just the underlying asset is what they are trading. They're just trading the price movement of Bitcoin, not actually the Bitcoin. So if you want to understand what an ETF is, this just tracks the performance of the underlying asset. So is it going up? Is it going down? It's just going to track that dollar figure. An ETF is a way for investors to get exposure to the value of the underlying asset, and their value should rise with the asset or fall with the asset as well. So why not just buy the Bitcoin? Well, some people still find it very risky to have to go and buy the Bitcoin and then store it. So this is why the ETFs are really important and why they're going to continue to get pushed further and further and further. Everyone else is wanting to create an ETF and obviously get these things out so that traditional institutions can be getting into them, because we can see that there is a big push. A bullish sentiment is back. Arcane Research has seen that, and that they are showing that on CME, showing that the price of Bitcoin is up because they think that ETFs are coming out, and we've seen one being approved. And we have other ETFs as well that are coming through from Cathie Wood, 21 Shares, Team Up, Bitcoin ETFs application. So the institutions want this. Possibly some retails also want to be trading ETFs rather than having to go out and buy Bitcoin, because then they have to buy it, then it sits on exchange, and maybe they store it. Do I put it in a wallet? Do I have to do all these sorts of things? And then possibly not interested in that side of Bitcoin, but they want to get exposure to the potential profits and losses of this particular asset because it's been talked about a lot. So Cathie Wood's onto that again, but we've got more on Cathie Wood in just a bit as well. She has been a really big driver in this space, sharing a lot of alpha with the traditional finance space, the institutions, and so on. Now, the other thing that I have for a second reason, so we've gone through the ETFs, the lodgements are there, the approvals are coming. We know it's going to get bigger. The reason is going to get bigger because the institutions want to buy in, but don't want to go around with buying it and having to store it, because then you have problems with insurance and who looks after it and what happens if you lose it and all that sort of thing, the security side of it. But the next big thing is overcoming the bad news. And this is something that I don't necessarily hear talked about often enough. This is the same as breaking through resistance. When you look at technical analysis and you look at a chart and you see some resistance at 60, 65,000, and we break through that resistance, it's the same thing when it comes to the news. We've had all of this bad news. We had China bans crypto. We had leverage longs liquidated. We had China mining bans back in May when the price first tanked in Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies followed suit. We had Elon fudding tweets about Bitcoin not being green enough and all this sort of nonsense. Then we had Tether being, in a pretty bad space, that what they are actually doing behind the scenes is not the same as what we're seeing. And then, of course, there was some of the problems with Bitfinex owning the Tether and then pumping up all this Tether, making Tether so they can go out and buy Bitcoin and just manipulate the market. So we've all seen that. Now we're seeing that the Tether Bitfinex story is kind of cleared. It keeps getting cleared and it keeps coming back into the news. So we'll look at that in just a sec. But the main point here essentially is we're overcoming the bad news. We're overcoming the resistance of all the bad news. And we've been climbing this wall of worry, which we've talked about over the last few videos on the channel as well. Climbing the wall of worry is what happens in a bull market. It's not a bear market scenario when you are looking at bad news and the market is climbing. That is very clear signs of a bull market. And so then now we're seeing the good news is rising to the surface. So the CFTC fines Tether, basically a slap on the wrist, $42 million. Come on, what does Tether have? Tether has billions, 68 billion in a market cap. So this isn't really too big of a problem for us. And we are now seeing slaps on the wrists. Let's move on. CFTC fined Tether $41 million for their violations and ordered Bitfinex to pay $1.5 million for continuing to facilitate illegal transitions. Contrary to that 2016 order that had directed the exchange to cease and desist from executing illegal retail commodity transactions. Who cares? No one cares. 1.5 million. It's probably like how much they make in fees per day. Moving forward, now the good news is floating, rising to the top. The creams are rising to the top. Morgan Stanley CEO says crypto isn't a fad, though not seeing much client demand. Of course, he's not seeing client demand because their clients aren't interested in cryptocurrency. They're traditional finance. For us, honestly, it's just not a huge part of the business demand for our clients. That may evolve, and we will evolve with it. He's saying it there that they're going to get into it at some point, but obviously right now, this would just be like talking to your mum and dad. They're probably not buying Bitcoin, but they're interested in it and they'll eventually buy it at some point. Following that, charting platform, which you guys see that I use here. We have a lot of these different cryptos. We can see it all on this charting platform. We see 298 million in the investment round, a 3 billion valuation for TradingView. If you guys do want to use TradingView, which is what I use, links to this are down below. Plenty of freebies when you sign up using those links down below as well. So with this, we've got massive valuations coming through. That's really what I wanted to get at with this news article. This doesn't generally happen in bear markets, and there's just so much money floating around with such massive valuations. It's no wonder that we're in a bull market. So you saw this as well. Coinbase sees 1.4 million signups for new NFT platform. So people are still very, very interested to risk, gamble, speculate on NFTs that they know absolutely nothing about, except someone else has a JPEG on their computer that they think is worth something. 1.4 million sign up to this. Imagine 3 years ago, no one even knew what NFTs were. Even early 2020, people weren't using NFTs. Now 1.4 million are in a queue, a wait list to get on to play around with NFTs on a marketplace. I still think this is in a bullish space, very, very bullish. It can be over before we know it, but look, there's a lot of good signs here at the moment. And I mean, according to my sleep, I would love for it to be over at some point soon, but I don't dictate the markets and I just have to put up with it. And lastly, point number 3, institutions continuing to buy, which we looked at earlier in some of the news pieces, according to ETFs, etc. Now we're seeing some pension funds get into the buying. And this is particularly here in Australia. Australian pension fund with 69 billion in assets under management. ICE Crypto Investment. Regulatory uncertainty scares Australian super. If you're familiar with the channel, you know I do talk about superannuation here. I've got all of my superannuation. So for guys internationally, it's just your retirement funds is what we have here. Our employers put 9.5% in. They have to by law. If you're getting paid PAYG, that goes into a super fund, and then those guys look after it, putting it into the stock market or some other nonsense that's barely keeping up with inflation. Now, some of these supers are looking to put their money into crypto, and the point I was making there is that all of my money is in cryptocurrency. Did that into early 2020 as an average price, but started in 2017. If you want to know more about that, there are also links to that in the description down below. A lot of companies that are helping you with that in Australia right now, accountants. So 69 billion with assets under management. The guy here, Simmons, said there's a likelihood that super funds seek out exposure to cryptocurrency. So the point I'm making here is that this is the start, but this is exactly what Cathie Wood has been talking about for quite a long time now. Quite a long time. Bitcoin could top $500,000 per BTC, asks Cathie Wood. And what is her reason for this? She is super bullish on Bitcoin, on Tesla, a lot of stuff in technology. ARK's case for $500,000 Bitcoin is based on the assumption that institutional investors could allocate 5% of their investment funds to the digital token over time. Maybe it's not this peak that we see next. Maybe it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now. They're looking a little bit longer term than your average 20-year-old investor who's just signing up to Coinbase or CoinSpot and looking to make it big on the trending page of Coinbase. All right, so this is the stuff that's pumping. This is a little bit further than that point in time. And so they're looking to put in 5%, her thoughts, as it offers a low return correlation to other traditional asset classes. I've seen 2 periods in my investment life where what seemed like new asset classes were moving into institutional portfolios. So in the 1970s and 80s, real estate was the thing, and emerging markets were the other thing. So institutions were getting into real estate 50 years ago and emerging markets. And now a lot of people obviously are wanting to get into real estate. It's been going on for a few decades now, but emerging markets is also another cool thing to be investing in. And she sees this trend spilling over into cryptocurrencies as well. If institutions around the world were to allocate 5% of their portfolios to Bitcoin, that allocation alone, and this is just one of the many use cases out there, that would add roughly 500,000 to Bitcoin's price. Probably mix that up, but that's essentially where she's going there, around a $500,000 Bitcoin. To recap, the three: institutions buying into cryptocurrency, or at least starting. And this is always how it begins. Just one or two, like we've seen with some of the companies. Had MicroStrategy buying some Bitcoin, and then Tesla, the biggest tech company at the moment, the most popular, is buying some Bitcoin, and then it starts to flow on from that point. And we're starting to see it with pension funds, and they're probably the slowest to move as well, because sort of old traditional money, it's your super fund. It has to be super, super safe because it's there for your retirement. So this is probably going to be the slowest space. And then for me, I think this is a huge one, especially in a bull market, overcoming bad news, breaking through that resistance of the bad news. We've crossed all of these prices now. We've crossed all of them. Whenever this bad news came out, we have crossed all of those prices. Make sure you keep an idea on your charts of where those prices came in. And we're seeing a lot of the good news rising to the surface again. We're seeing that a lot. ETFs, finally getting there. October. People were looking at that. There was a lot of research companies that were predicting that it could be in October. Maybe we'll see it in November and December as well, because the SEC has been pushing those deadlines down the track, and we're starting to get to those points. So that's really starting to escalate the price of Bitcoin, and we can see it. It's about 100% since those lows in May and June, probably just a touch over 100%. It's gone up in those last few months. So the ETFs are coming as well. There are our 3 points there. The extra bonuses I gave, the fundamentals, scarcity on exchanges, we know that. I wasn't going to play on that too much. But of course, when stuff is getting taken off and there's more demand coming, it could just shoot the price up more than we expect it to go, more than it's actually really worth. And then the technical side, Bitcoin is closer to its all-time highs. That just shows that it's a stronger horse at the moment. And that could change next week, a few weeks from now, but at the moment that was a stronger horse, and it was starting to show those signs a few days ago, probably a few weeks ago now. And of course, if you're looking back into July at that low, some of the signs were happening there, but we're still seeing some altcoins pop off at that point. But now it really looks like it's Bitcoin's game. So there you have it, the 3 reasons why Bitcoin is exploding. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, like, and also join us on Patreon. There's a few spots left. Check it out. Link is down below. I'll see you guys on Instagram or Twitter, and of course, Patreon down below. Otherwise, I'll catch you at the next video. So until then, have more fun to get more done.